Welcome to the debut episode of the Speak of Me As I Am podcast, Season 1, Episode 1. I'm your host, Kenthel speaking. On this show, I'll be opening a window into my brain and the aspects of my life, speaking of myself as I am. Today's episode is Speaking of Me, so without further ado, let's get started. To begin with, here is a short excerpt from the book Speak of Me As I Am by Sonja Belasco that is very impactful to me, obviously, podcast name. And it does at times make me emotional when I read it. Photographs are what we leave behind, Carlos had said. So he'd left his for Damon, his legacy in a box. What he didn't know how to tell Damon, what felt like too much to say out loud. He'd left them there for Damon to see. But photographs aren't all we leave behind. Not photographs, not letters, not drawings or paintings, not houses or cars or money or clothes. People are what we leave behind. Now to start off with, first, I am recovering from a really rough allergy, turmoil thing going on. So I've been stalling on recording this episode and posting it for forever. And, sometimes you just have to say, just do it. So I'm just giving you that disclaimer. The more that I talk, you might get a bit more rasp, a bit more husk. But, it's going to be all the more authentic. And, some people, like one of my friends are into that kind of thing. So there you go. That's your fair warning. You're going to get a little bit of husk from me today. Now, you may be wondering why I speak of me as I am. Now, let me tell you how I came up with this podcast title, how I even read the book to begin with. We got to jump all the way back to, I think, 2019, I believe, when I was in 7th grade. I was on this platform called Sora, and Sora is this reading platform for K through 12 schools if your school district uses it, and it's completely free. So I was on Sora looking for my next read. I wanted an audiobook because I wanted to do some house cleaning, but I needed to read. I love reading and I needed something to read and I wanted it to play in the background. So I was like, what am I going to read? So I'm scrolling, I'm looking. I think I was looking in the young adult section. I'm like looking, and I saw this like light blue cover and it had this almost like paint type of font, and it said Speak of Me As I Am, and it had this like photograph with like a thumb and a flower thing going on. If you're watching on YouTube, then you'll be able to see the cover, but hope that description gives it a bit of justice. You can always go and look it up. And I was like, what's this about? Speak of Me As I Am. That's an interesting title. And I read the description, which is as follows. A moving story of grief, honesty, and the healing power of art. The ties that bind us together, even when those we love are gone. Melanie and Damon are both living in the shadow of loss. For Melanie, it's the loss of her larger-than-life artist mother, taken by cancer well before her time. For Damon, it's the loss of his best friend, Carlos, who took his own life. As they struggle to fill the empty spaces their loved ones left behind, fate conspires to bring them together. Damon takes pictures with Carlos's camera to try to understand his choices, and Melanie begins painting as a way of feeling closer to her mother. But when the two join their school's production of Othello, the play they both hoped would be a distraction becomes a test of who they truly are, both together and on their own. And more than anything else, they discover that it just might be possible to live their lives without completely letting go of their sadness. So I read that and I was like, this sounds interesting. Hold on, water break. And we're back. So I read that and I was like, this sounds interesting. I want more. And I ended up listening to it. And this book, man. Now, I'm not going to be able to tell you all what I thought about it when I was like 12 reading this book for the first time. My memory's bad and As much as I don't like to admit it, that was a little bit of a while ago. I'm in 12th grade now. I'm going to graduate in a couple of months. Actually, in less than a couple of months. So I can't tell you all exactly what I thought, but hear me when I say that this book was remarkable to me. It was remarkable to me then, and it is even more so now. It is just one of those books that gets better the more that you reread it. You learn different things about yourself. You learn different things about the characters. There's so much revelations that I didn't even realize until I got a bit older and I read it again. I was like, oh my gosh, I did not realize this. It's not just a book about like grief and loss. It's a book about like discovering yourself and showing up authentically for yourself and figuring out how to do that. Because a lot of the times we always talk about authenticity in this world and, you know, being real and stop being fake and all these things. But we have to determine for ourselves what that truly means. And this book is it was such a pinnacle in my self-discovery and learning what it is to truly show up for myself authentically. One of the last things that Othello says, which is why this book is titled the way it is speak of me as I am. Othello, I didn't do it when I first read it, and I didn't even do it the second time I read it, but I think on my third read, which was recently, I actually looked up the story of Othello. I went and I found it and I searched and I was like, what? Like, because the play is a very big part of this story because it kind of takes you through the play as the characters are navigating their roles within it. But it doesn't talk a lot about like the actual storyline of the play. It kind of treats you like you already know what the story's about, even if you don't know what the play is about at all. So when I read it the third time, I actually looked it up. And once again, remember, my memory is bad, but I looked it up and it's basically the story of this man, Othello, who was in love with this woman who kind of let outside influences get in the way of his love and distort his perception of things. And it ends up in a tragedy. And yeah, don't quote me. I think he kills himself. Don't quote me. I know he dies. It's a low-key get Romeo and Juliet, but not really. Like, not really. Once again, memory's a bit shaky, so don't quote me. Go look it up yourself. But I watched some like they have like summaries of it on YouTube. Like you can go and watch, like I watched like a few of them a long time ago not a long time ago, but almost a year ago at this point. And they have YouTube videos that kind of sum it up. But go watch that if you ever plan on reading the book. In general, the Othello stories, the storyline is pretty interesting. I mean, it's Shakespeare. Love him or hate him, you can't lie that he has interesting storylines. So one of the last things that Othello did say was speak of me as I am. And he was a flawed character, but he loved fiercely and he tried to be a good person, but he fell short. And the characters are navigating their own shortcomings and their own personalities and things of that nature. And then you add back in the aspect of grief. When I first read this book, I had never experienced a great personal loss. I've been to funerals before, maybe a long loss, not a long loss, but a distant relative who passed away of old age or something. I went to my grandmother passed away when I was like 4. And my dad's mom, my mom's mom had already passed away long before I was born. So had my mom didn't know her father, so I never knew him myself. And my dad's dad passed away long before I was born. Here the emphasis on the long. So and my dad's a lot older than my mom, so it's very ironic that my dad's mom passed away way after my mom's mom. But I remember going to her funeral. I didn't know her like that. I was 4. So all that to say, I had never really experienced much grief when I had initially read this book. And since then, I've lost a few people in my life. Unfortunately, all of them young people. I have lost someone recently who she was older, and I appreciated her growing up, but she was like one of those, like, auntie figures. R.I.P to her. But the catastrophic grief that I have faced within the past few years has been from young people younger than the age of 32. Some, the youngest was 13. I think the oldest was 30. I think he just, when he passed away, he was 30 or 31. Don't quote me. So when you add that lens of grief into things, the way that this book impacted me almost makes me emotional thinking about it. It was a hard read because I think I read it last summer, and that was before my most recent death, which was this past December. But 3 people that I loved and cared about passed away at the time of that third reading. And when I tell you, this book really gave me some tools that I didn't even realize I had in my toolbox of navigating who I am with my grief and who they were, and how to continue to be myself and show up authentically as myself with these new layers to me and all of these things. So hear me when I say that I loved this book, and I didn't give you guys any spoilers. So that means that because of the way that I just talked about that book, you guys should be super duper interested in it and go read it. Period. Especially if you're a part of my school system. If you know, you know. It is accessible to you for the free ski. Go read it immediately. I promise you it's great. It's phenomenal. It has dual perspectives. You get a perspective with Damon, who I consider him the main character of this book. And then you also get the perspective of Melanie. Read it. I swear it's amazing, okay? But with that being said, so when I was thinking about what to name this podcast, I went through a few different names, quite a few of them, and I didn't know what to do. I'm not going to say some of the names because they kind of sound quite silly. I'll tell you one. One of them was going to be Kicking It With, because, my name's Kendall, I thought the K thing. Then I went on Spotify. I said, you know what? This does not sound very original. Let me go look this up and see how many people. Yeah, the search was humbling. It was not the quirkiness that I thought it was. Maybe it was too quirky, actually. So I was thinking, after a bit of consultation with a good friend of mine I like to call ChatGPT, because she knows this book is very, very important to me and that I love it very much. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I use AI to assist me. I think the best use of AI is when you give it information that is from you, that you thought of, and it helps you churn out ideas based off of things from your own mind. That, to me, is the best use of AI. And that's how I like to use it. So, hate it or love it, AI is actually very scary as well. It's kind of spooky and concerning, but I got to give credit where it's due. So we went through quite a few names. I went through names by myself. I looked up a whole bunch of names, and then I consulted with my girl Chat quite a few times. We went through quite a few lists on different occasions. And when she gave me Speak of Me As I Am, I said, Eureka, girl, you're literally a genius. Oh my gosh, how did I not think of this? And here we are. That is why this podcast is the name that it is, okay? So, with that being said, I feel like if you know a lot about me, my book tastes are a huge part of who I am, okay? They're my favorite form of media. Like, out of everything, out of books, out of songs, out of writing is a part of books, whatever. But out of everything, books, that's where it's at for me. Books are my home. It's where my heart is. They're my favorite form of media. So if you know my book taste, you know a lot about me, okay? So let's get into them, okay? I don't typically like to read a lot of standalones. Actually, scratch that. It's not that I don't like to, it's just that I typically don't, okay? Speak of Me As I Am is one of those examples. But some of my additional favorites are When by Victoria Laurie, The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, R.I.P. Eliza Hart by Alyssa Sheinmel, and Code of Honor by Alan Gratz, to name a few, okay? Now, all of these books are phenomenal in their own way, and I'm excited to share more about them and all of the books that I love and mention with you in the future. But we're not going to get too into it because, like I said, there's a lot of them. It's my favorite form of media. Now, remember how I said that it's not that I don't necessarily like standalones, but I don't read a lot of them. Let me tell you why. My guilty pleasure of books, my top choice to read, even if it's sometimes not actually by choice because I did it by accident, is reading series. From duologies to trilogies and beyond. Some of my favorites, and I'm calling them by their official series name based off of what I Googled, they are Letters of Enchantment by Rebecca Ross, The Crowns of Nyaxia by Carissa Broadbent, The Young Elites by Marie Lu, the Fortuna Sworn series by KJ Sutton, the Me Before You series by Jojo Moyes. And yes, it's actually a trilogy. It's not a standalone. People only think it's one book because of the movie. But anyways, and not the, because it's just that good, Black Witch Chronicles by Laurie Forrest. These books, if you decide to read them, may take you on a bit of a journey, but you just won't know unless you know how worthy the ride is until you read them for yourselves, which I completely recommend. Let me just get into the whole series thing. Hear me when I say I read series sometimes by accident, not by choice. Like, I don't know. I'll find a book on Sora, or I'll find a book and I'll start reading it. And I'll be like, this is fine. And I'll Google it sometimes. Sometimes I just see it on Sora and I'll just start reading it. And it won't, sometimes when a book is a part of a series, it won't list it on Sora. So I look at it, I'm like, is this a series? But it sounds like a standalone. So I read it. Then I get left out on a cliffhanger. I go and I Google the book and it's one of 3, 1 of 5. Like, hello? We weren't going to tell me anything? I'm sorry. Then sometimes I'll Google the book straight. Like if I see maybe a book recommendation from a creator on Instagram or TikTok, I'm very skeptical about books that I found on the internet. But from certain creators that I really like, don't ask me to name them right now. That's for a different episode because I can't think of them off the top of my head right now. I'll go and I'll read the book. So sometimes I'll look up the book and it won't tell me anything about a series. It just won't. When I look, at least, I guess maybe Google will be biased towards me sometimes, and I'll read the book, and it's a series. I'm at the end of the book. I'm on a cliffhanger, and now I have to read the other 2, the other 4. Like, hello? I swear, I don't know. I guess series are just meant for me, because I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I do love a series. Like, they are a guilty pleasure after all. I do love a good series. I do. Now, there are a couple of books turned movies from my books list. One that I absolutely love, in fact. Movies don't explain as much about me as books do, but they most definitely give a bit of insight. There are books turned movies that I love, and then there are just movies I love that don't correlate at all with my book obsession. Let me tell you a little bit more about them. So, I have to begin this movie convo with the book turned movie I mentioned I love. Do you have any guesses? If you guessed The Hate You Give, then you're wrong. I actually like the movie, but not on the principle of it being a book to movie adaptation because it's very inaccurate. We can talk about that in a different episode because book to movie adaptations are actually a big pet peeve of mine unless it's done right. For me personally, if you're going to be a book adaptation, you need to be as accurate to the book as possible. If you are a movie inspired by a book, then you have free reign to twist it and take aspects of it and make it your own as much as you like. But if you are a book adaptation in a movie form, then you, to me, have an obligation to be as accurate to the book as possible. And a lot of book to movie adaptations are not that. And The Hate You Give is one of them. It's not one of the worst, but it's definitely, in terms of that, not, it's not the best thing. Like, some of the key morals are kind of skewed in the movie versus the book. Now, if it was just the movie though, that movie is really good. Like, if we're just talking about the movie, I personally loved it. Just not off of the principle of it being a book to movie adaptation. Now, the movie I was actually talking about was Me Before You. Like I said, many people don't even know it's a trilogy, okay? And if they do know, apparently the book people don't have high opinions of the other two books. Just to clarify, I am not one of those people. I loved the Me Before You movie. I used to list it as one of my favorite movies. Like, it used to be my top 3, but it's one of those movies that makes me emotional, and it's one of those movies, it takes like a toll for me, and I don't, if I want to list it as one of my favorite movies, like, it's one of my favorite movies, don't get me wrong, but I can't list it in my top 3 because it's just not one of my comfort movies. For me, my favorite books, my favorite movies, they got to be the kind of things that I love to go back to. Like, I love to reread them. I love to rewatch them. And don't get me wrong, I might watch Me Before You in the next few months, but it's one of those things I watch once every couple of years. Like, maybe I'm a wimp, but it's a bit of an emotional toll for me, especially if you read the book. And by the way, it's a great book to movie adaptation. So even if you didn't read the book, you would have a solid idea of what happens in the book. You're just missing a few details because obviously the movie's like 2 hours. You can't fit like an 8-hour plus worth reading time into 2 hours and get every detail, but it's very accurate. So if you ever liked the movie and you wanted to read it, and you wondered if you should read the book, you should. And I personally think the trilogy is fine. I'm a bit of a critiquer. Is that a word? We're gonna move on. I critique very much when it comes to trilogies, actually. Fun fact. You know what? We'll get into that fun fact later. Let's keep moving. Okay. But I don't know. I don't know why people don't like the trilogy, but we're going to move on. Some other movies I enjoy unrelated to books are the original Mulan, The Sound of Music, Frozen, Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior, and my favorite movie of all time, Black Panther. Also, side note with Mulan, we could have a whole other topic of conversation about live actions and how they're rising in popularity right now and how they just don't give the aura of the original movie. Like the live action of Mulan is, now we're not talking about the culture, accuracy and stuff like that. I am not the person to speak on that, and I'm quite frankly fully aware of the fact that it's not the most accurate. It's a folktale, and you know Disney's gonna Disney. So I'm not the one to speak on that. I just like Mulan on the principle that I think it's a good movie. Okay, I love Mulan down. That's honestly my favorite Disney princess. I love it so much. And the main aspects of Mulan, it's a lighthearted movie that has serious themes, bravery, rising to the occasion, secrecy. And then it has like the fun musical moments and, you know, the comedy and stuff. So imagine all the things that makes the serious story of Mulan in the original movie with the lighthearted aspects, right? And then take all the lighthearted aspects away, and that's the live action. Like, it's just so gloomy and mean. Like, and then they didn't want it to be a musical because they wanted it to be more serious and stuff. But then they still had like a fictional kind of dragon thing going on. Like, what was the point? Like, they could have just kept the lighthearted aspects that made it fun, that made it, you know, Mulan. But, you know, I digress. Then we have the whole, I can't remember how to pronounce it, Uyghur Muslims. Don't quote me on the first pronunciation, but we know, well, if you know, the production of that was very flawed. It was during COVID, and it was just very bad. It was just very bad. So in case you guys can't tell, and I hope that you guys enjoy, I am a sidetrack queen. I have been told that I have ADHD by a former therapist, and it makes a lot of sense. So I will say, if you're not the type of person who likes sidetracking, I try to come back to the main points. I do. But I love a sidetrack down. I've recorded this episode a gazillion times, and we'll talk about that later on in the episode. I feel like it doesn't work without my sidetracking. Like, hello, we're trying to be authentic here. Speak of me as I am. And guys, I'm a sidetrack queen. I'm a sidetrack every time. It's what I do. I love it down. But like I said, I try to come back to the main points. So we're going to get back to the main points, okay? Now, if you ask me to choose between watching a new movie and watching a new show, I would pick the movie. For the record, I'm not a fan of consuming any new media, and I like to stay with the books, movies, shows, and whatever else that I know. However, who would I be if I didn't have my staple shows? Let's get into them. My favorite show of all time, running for 10 years now at the time of recording this, and I've been there since the very beginning at like 7, 8 years old, is none other than Miraculous, Tales of Ladybug and Cat Noir. Say what you like, but that's my number one, and I'm going to stick beside her. I love her down. Also, side note, season 6, as a Miraculous fan who has watched the show for very long, obviously, we just talked about it, who's critiqued the repetitiveness and, has wanted more from the show, has wanted more plot development. Babes, season 6 did not come to play. Season 6, different life events in all aspects outside of Miraculous, just living life, make you realize you never know what you have until it's gone. But when I tell you season 6 is giving me this life lesson, because when I tell you it's so serious, like it's every episode, I'm like, oh my God, like, oh my God. Like the most recent episode that I watched, I can't remember the title. I'm very bad with names when I can't remember it off the top of my head. You'll learn that. But it was basically, I don't want to spoil it, but what? I'm trying not to say the main thing that happened because that's how I remember the episode. But you know what? I'll say it this way. The episode in which Cat Noir discovered a new power of his, a new lasting power of his. Okay? That episode, if you know, you know. Oh my God. Hello. What? OMG. We're not playing anymore. It's not a kid show anymore. Like it is, obviously, but like the seriousness is, whew. Like I'll be leaving every episode nowadays. Like, whew, I'll be having chills. Since the London special, actually. Since the London special, I have been, gagged. Okay? It's been not, Anyways, we're going to move on from the Miraculous talk, okay? I also love Casey Undercover with a passion. I love Zendaya Queen down, okay? House MD, Little Fires Everywhere, which is also a book series that I have been meaning to read for years now, and I still haven't, but the show is great, okay? Every Which Way, which is an OG Nickelodeon show. True Beauty, which is a K-drama, and Tangled, the series. I'm not going to even lie. Children's television has my heart. Something about it is just, I love it. Like, okay, yeah, don't get me wrong. I love my Scandal. I love my House MDs. You know, what people watch Grey's Anatomy and all these other serious shows. But let me tell you, children's television, it's going to do it for me every time. Now, certain kid shows, like I need it to be more serious. Like I need it to be like, I'm not watching what's the show called? Big City Greens. I'm not watching that. Or SpongeBob is cool too, but I'm not those like lighthearted, like comedy based shows. Which, by the way, if you were ever curious, which no one asks, but I'm telling you anyways, my favorite little like comedy, lighthearted shows. I love those kind of cartoons where they don't speak; they just do funny stuff. My Tom and Jerry's, that little rabbit show that used to be on Nickelodeon. I never remember the name, but it's like. Like the little weird looking rabbits, like they're like minions, but they're rabbits. Them. I love that show down. Oh my gosh, so funny. There's this show called Grizzy and the Lemmings. Love that show down. Those are my favorite, like lighthearted, comedic kind of like kid shows. Like just shows that they're not saying a word. They're just doing funny stuff. Like they're just living their life and they're just funny. Those are my favorite cartoons because I'm not even a big cartoon person. Don't ask me nothing about The Amazing World of Gumball or Raven. That ain't the show. What's that show called? That ain't it either. Adventure Times. Yeah, don't ask me nothing about them. I don't know much about them to tell you anything. But yeah, just in case you're ever curious about those kind of shows. But yeah, I love children's television. But mainly the serious ones, like the ones that have like powers and stuff, or like have more serious stuff going on. Yeah. Now, speaking of things that have my heart, we've already established that books have my heart the most out of all forms of media. What we haven't established, though, is the fact that music takes second place. I'm a music scholar at my core, so it only makes sense that a chorus turned band kid loves this artful form of media. Now, let's get into the specifics, okay? Now, I will say, my palette of music taste is a bit interesting. I think my favorite genre of all time would have to be oldies. And I don't mean 90s oldies, but rather 40s through 60s oldies. Something about them is just so peaceful and amazing. I don't know. Also, a new genre I'm starting to get into that I've been sleeping on all my life, neo soul. Like, it's giving me the kinds of vibes that my oldies gives me, and I love that down. Like, I'm starting to really get into Erykah Badu. There's this other woman's name, Cleo. I think her name is Cleo, just Cleo or Cleo Soul. I don't remember. Remember, I'm bad at names and remembering in general. But yeah, fun fact, I'm starting to get into that genre and I'm having a jolly good time, okay? Now, ironically enough, just like this neo soul thing I just mentioned, I developed a love for oldies all on my own. But I grew up listening to a fair share of classical music, 80s, 90s, and now, which if you've ever listened to B98.5, you'll understand the reference, okay? The now part was mainly pop. Over time, I've come to have a deep appreciation for 90s music, as well as hip hop, R&B, and more conventional modern music genres. Now, my favorite song of all time is Half Crazy by Music Soul Child, because it's just that girl to me. I don't know. I just can't explain it. She just does something to me. She itches a part of my brain. It's been my favorite song for like 3 years now. Like, I just love it. I don't know. Some of my other top picks are Saturn by SZA, Puppy Love by Paul Anka, Hiss by Megan Thee Stallion, At Last by Etta James, which has to play at my wedding, by the way. I'm either walking down the aisle to it or it's going to be the song for the first dance. Don't care. Has to be. It just has to be. Who's Loving You by the Jackson 5, Love You Too Much by Lucky Day. I have listed here Liebestrom or Love Dream by Franz Liszt as the last one, which is a classical song, by the way. But I got to add one. Intro, The End of the World, which is like the first song off of the Eternal Sunshine album. But Ariana just dropped a deluxe, I think, New Beginnings Ahead, whatever. Remember, I'm going to keep telling y'all, I'm going to keep reminding y'all, I don't remember stuff. I don't remember names. But that just came out, the extended version. That has to be added to my favorite songs list. It has to be added because it is just so good. It is just so good, okay? It's easier for me to name song names that I love in comparison to top artists because I just can't rank them, okay? Now, on the topic of Ariana Grande, according to Spotify Rap, she's my top artist, okay? And I did listen to Eternal Sunshine, her most recent album, like I said, at the time of recording this, a whole bunch. Like, that album ran platinum in my room and in my shower. Loved that album down. And I'm not even a big album person. Like, I typically like songs from an album. I've been trying to get more into listening to albums recently. Like, an artist will release something and I try to actually listen to the whole album. But typically I'm a person who likes songs off of albums. I don't typically like a whole body of work. But that body of work, that thing, it's divine. I don't know how else to tell you, okay? It's just great. Now, some of my other favorites are Lucky Day, SZA, Leon Thomas, he's finally starting to get the flowers that he deserves. He has been eating for a long time. We all know him from Andre, from Victorious. But true to his character, true to his actual character in that show, he's been eating in the music game for so long. And he's been underrated for so long. So I'm so happy that he's starting to finally get his flowers, okay? I also love Sam Cooke, Etta James, New Edition, Daniel Caesar, the artist, not the person, Megan Thee Stallion, Future, 21 Savage, and Frank Sinatra. The music, not the artist. I'd like to think my music taste is uniquely elite and holds a lot of variety. It's been shaped by the melodies I've been naturally drawn to and the melodies of those I've been fond of throughout time. My music taste and other top picks in media have all been formed by a blend of influences, and they have molded me in return. The same can be said for the ideologies that define my beliefs. Music and other forms of media have played a crucial role in crafting my ideals into what they are. And I want to dive deeper into them with you all. Okay? The media I consume, specifically the books I have read, have played a critical role in ironing out my belief systems. Some of my ideologies may be ones you agree with, and some may dissuade you from listening to me in general. This podcast will not be one of politics. The whole world is full of politics right now, actually. And I want to be a space that is away from that, not completely, because at the end of the day, our ideals shape our takes, okay? But this place is not going to be where we, discuss all of that. Because like I said, the world is quite dark right now. And I would prefer to keep my own form of media as a place of my beliefs shaping my takes rather than just about my beliefs. However, I think it is important for me to establish a bit of my perspective that I come into all of these podcast discussions with. You listening have the right to know up front whether or not my point of view is one you can get jiggy with. Without further ado, here are my top 10 most important belief system facts, okay? Number 1, I am a United Methodist, which is a denomination of Christianity. 2, I believe in the right of choice for all people with uteruses, okay? 3, I don't believe in the death penalty. And no, I do not think that the right to choice and the death penalty are equivalent. There is a vast, humongous difference between an unconscious and unknowing fetus versus a grown human who probably killed someone or was accused of doing so if they're getting put on death row, being told by the government that because they killed someone, it makes sense for the same people who said killing is wrong to be able to kill them too. Not to mention the amount of unfair convictions. 4, I'm tired of men using equal rights, equal fights as an excuse to continuously kill chivalry. Everyone should have the same dignity as everyone. And in hetero spaces, men should also open doors and give up seats. The two ideals, they can coexist. I'm living proof. 5, there is nothing sinful or blasphemous about the LGBTQ plus community. Argue with your mama, argue with your pappy, argue with your pastor. But don't argue with me, because my mind is made up on that. In fact, just a side note, think about why many Christians believe what they believe about the LGBTQ plus community. Probably because they found it in the Bible. How many versions of the Bible are there? How many times has it been rewritten? Look up the King James Bible and how it was molded to fit his monarchy and his ideals. Look back to that specific verse that everyone loves to quote that says being gay is a sin, and then find out how that verse was altered and how it originally dealt with pedophilia. That's all I'm going to say on that matter. Okay. 6, I think being apolitical in this climate is a blatant show of a lack of intelligence and morals. And it seems as though people are starting to not have a choice in being apolitical because it's starting to affect their lives, and they're starting to realize that what affects one affects all. That's all on that. 7, I think being a strong conservative in this climate is having a vast amount of inhumanity. There's certain people who are like economically conservative and okay. All right. Socially conservative, strongly conservative in this climate, in this day and age, in the Lord's year of 2025. You don't respect your fellow man. You don't. There's no way. And many conservatives are gung-ho about Christianity. That's the funny part. But there is no way, in my personal belief, or it is my personal belief, that it is impossible for you to be a strong conservative in today's day and age and support your fellow man. They just don't go together. They just don't go together. They don't. Okay. 8, critical thinking is on the decline. It is. That's all. 9, if we as a society read more, we would love our fellow man so much more than we do now. I mentioned it briefly before, and I'm going to say explicitly now. Reading has fundamentally shaped how I view the world and how I view people. Reading has instrumentally played a role in me having empathy for other people and other points of view in this world. Critical thinking is on the decline and empathy is on the decline. And reading will solve both of those issues. Okay? Okay. Last but not least, 10. I think this is a banger. Everyone on earth is by default worthy of dignity, respect, humanity, and safety. That alone covers just about every single global injustice you can ever think of. From racism in America to the genocide in Gaza to what's happening in Sudan. That right there, my number 10, covers just about any injustice you could think of. Okay? Now, with that being said, I want to tell you some of my favorite creators who challenge my belief systems and make sure I continuously question the status quo. FD Signifier, Illuminati, Intellectual Media, and there's this one other, I can't remember her off the top of my head right now, but she's this white woman, she has blonde hair. Hold on, we gotta go look this up right now because the way that she eats down, oh my gosh, she is so good. Boom, Leisha Miller. Her name is Leisha Miller. That is someone else. And she's very critical right now. She makes videos almost like every day, multiple times a week at least, about what is currently happening if you are in the US and you want to know what's going on. Because the news right now, and this is coming from a person who used to love watching the news because I love knowing what's happening. It's so dreary that even me, I hate watching it. So finding people who give you good information, knowledgeable information, fact-checked information is critical in today's climate. So I'm going to say them again. FD Signifier, Illuminati, Intellectual Media, and Leisha Miller are creators that I value substantially in general and especially in today's climate. Some of them are more political than others. Some of them do more social critiques than political critiques, even though they intertwine. But I recommend those channels profoundly. They are great, okay? And I know that even if my top 10 belief system facts didn't give you fruit for thought, which I hope they did, these creators most definitely will, okay? Now, before I get into the conclusion of this episode, I wanted to mind you, this episode is scripted, okay? A lot of these things that I've mentioned, I've gone off the dome because that's who I am, but this episode is scripted so I can have a kind of a home base to come back to make sure I stay on topic and we keep the episode moving. But I'm adding this impromptu section at the end. Some of my current media interests right now, I recently finished the trilogy of The Children of Blood and Bone. How do I say? You know what? This is how we're going to do this section. I'm going to tell you something that I recently consumed, and I'm going to give it a rating of 1 through 10. Okay? That's how we're going to do this. Okay? So I recently read the trilogy of The Children of Blood and Bone. Very popular, especially a few years back, and it's having a resurgence in popularity because they're making a live action movie. Rating, maybe a 5. Maybe, if even. We're gonna leave it at a 5. Okay? I hope to do an episode on it in the future as to why it was a 5. But the spoiler alert is it did not have good continuation. That's the biggest critique I have for it because it started off with a banger. Would it have ever been like my top trilogy? No. That spot is reserved for The Young Elites by Marie Lu. But the biggest issue with that series was the continuation, or rather the lack thereof, okay? Recently, Ariana dropped her deluxe album for Eternal Sunshine, okay? My rating, I'm gonna be a bit strict. I'm gonna give it a 8 or a 9. Okay. Yeah, I'll give it an 8. Reason being, as much as I love that album, and it's honestly my favorite album at the current moment, like just off the top of my head, the new songs, as much as I love them, they're really good songs, are great. But right now I'm kind of like in a music, like I told you I'm getting into neo soul right now. I go through phases where if I'm listening, especially to like audiobooks, I'm not listening to music like that because I'm listening to something else. So right now I'm kind of in this space where I'm not like musically driven. And so what I expect from songs that I really like, I hear it for the first time and oh my God, I need it, is for it to resurge my desire to listen to a whole bunch of music. And don't get me wrong, when I get back into my music grind after I'm finished with my audiobooks right now, I'm going to listen to this deluxe album heavily. But right now, those songs just didn't scream to me as much as I wanted them to scream to me. When I'm back in my music bag, they're gonna sing. They're gonna sing to me, okay? But I wanted them to scream to me, and they didn't scream to me. Still love the songs though. All the new songs are amazing. I even gave a special shout out to the extended version of Intro. That song right there, man, look, love it down, okay? I recently finally watched the Mufasa movie. I was stalling on watching it because, fun fact, I like watching movies with people. And I mentioned I don't like watching new things. I like sticking with what I know. So when those two things are a thing, and I also like watching movies by myself though, because I'm an only child, in case you didn't know that. Just listening here, you wouldn't know that. I like being by myself. I like isolation, but I also like watching movies with people. It's like a deep urge. I don't know how to explain it. So I was stalling on watching it, but I finally watched it. My rating, I would give it a 9. It was really good. I really loved it. Or I'll get 8.7. Let me be a little strict. I'll give it 8.7. I really loved it. It made me a little bit sad because you know what happens in The Lion King. So it's like the precursor to what happened in The Lion King. I love the storytelling nature of it. Like, I love how they gave us the story of Mufasa through this storytelling narrative. It was very nice to follow. We hate Scar. I can't believe, like, how were you thinking about your brother like that? And you gonna dog him like that? Then, of course, because Disney knows how to do a soundtrack down, we got the happy, what did you say about my brother? Yeah, And then when things shift, they actually shift and they switch the melody of it and they make it more nefarious and ominous sounding. Like, they ate with that. So, yeah, 8.7, 8.8. Yeah, I really love that movie. Really great. I gave you a song, I gave you a trilogy, and I gave you a movie. Think that covers the topics that I talked about, right? Right? Ooh, let me give you a YouTuber I'm starting to get into. Foreign Man, okay? He eats, okay? I'm getting into him, and I like his content. I learned of him through Olay from Illuminati, and I like his content, and he has a bucket load of it that I can just like binge watch, because I hate when I like discover a new creator. Like, even when I discovered Olay, I think I've almost watched all of her content because she hasn't been around for as long. And that sucks for me because it's like, dang, I like you and I just want to keep watching you, but you don't have enough content for me to just keep watching. But Foreign Man, he does, and I appreciate that profoundly. Okay, I love that. So yeah, I guess that concludes the what I'm currently consuming section of this media episode, okay? So, overall, this episode was a get to know me episode, and I chose the medium of media because I feel like it's such a big part of all of us. And what better way to get to know someone than to know their heart, what they consume, and why? I tried recording this episode a gazillion times. Hear me when I say gazillion, okay? I went through many scripts. I've scrapped so many recordings. Oh my gosh. You don't even understand. Like, at least 10. At least 10. Minimum, okay? None of it felt right. And things felt more like I was advertising myself to you listening instead of bearing my heart for you to bear yours too. And then I hated the length too. Like, when I finally got to where I almost was satisfied, The episode was like 20 minutes. I was like, oh no, we're almost there, but I'm still not showing up as much as I can. I'm still not showing up as authentically as I can. So I included a lot of my sidetracks, the places that my mind goes naturally just off the dome. And I hope that you guys enjoyed that, because I have enjoyed speaking about these things, okay? Look, you're not going to know everything about me after listening, but I hope you still have a solid grasp of who I am as a person. I've realized that the nitty-gritty details will come with time, okay? I included an excerpt in the beginning of today's episode, and I plan to do so in each and every single one moving forward, whether from me or from another. I think it sets the tone and offers a bit of my soul to you in a way, because I chose that piece of writing from my heart for you, the listener. Since this is the first episode, I'll give you a bonus and leave you with this piece of writing I did initially around April of 2024. So basically it's April right now at the time of recording this. So literally almost a year ago. It's a few weeks short of a year. And it's titled The Art of Life. I thought I could resign to the mundane, could make home in it without the sane. I thought I could get used to the bleakness of black and white, but my heart of grays, plentiful, numerous grays, it fights. I thought my love of art could be downed, but I, turning blind to beauty, frowned. I thought my poet's heart could see the world in a different lens, could make the browns of my eyes turn to nothing, could be cleansed. Now, originally when I wrote this poem, I never ended up finishing it, but I've done so in this script for this episode. But then my heart awoke and color flowed in. I took off his lens I forced on and I saw life again. The eyes are the windows to the soul. Of that I am certain. Never again should I dim them, placing another's curtain. Now, don't expect every ending to be so poetic. You get it? Please feel free to leave comments, suggestions, and feedback about today's episode. I can't wait for us to meet again, and hopefully you'll be along for the ride. But until then, please follow the socials on here, wherever you're listening, Instagram, and YouTube by searching Speak of Me As I Am in some form or fashion. Farewell.